Let's bring in Ari Fleischer. He's a former press secretary for George W. Bush. I want to drill down deeper on this story because if you look at the reporting, especially that's come from our own John Roberts, talking to a senior administration official saying that what really happened is FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, who we just heard about there, he brought it up. He approached Reince Priebus, and he's the one that went and said, hey, you know that story that was in the New York Times regarding the contacts between Trump's campaign and Russia? That was BS. And Priebus, according to this source, said, well, what am I supposed to do about that? I mean, that's great, but what can I do with that information? He said, I don't know, call me, and I'll have some ideas. And then according to this report, Priebus called him at the FBI. I mean, there would be a recording of that and said, okay, what are your ideas? And he said, oh, there's nothing I could do. I mean, there's a lot in there that's strange. Let's start with the fact, why would the FBI director reach out and say, guess what, that story is BS, in his words?
Well, because the FBI has a dual role. One, they are the investigator of allegations, and that's their job to independently run to ground. But two, they also have a relationship with the White House. And so if they run something to ground and it runs up on the front page of a newspaper and it turns out to be false, it's human nature. And it's also Washington relationships. They're going to tell their bosses at the White House the story is false. And that sounds like what's happened here. Yeah,
but and then the narrative, the way it gets leaked and the way it gets picked up in the paper is Priebus reached out to this deputy director and said, hey, you got to go on the record. You got to do something to help me stomp down this story. And that's not at all, according to this source, how it happened.
Well, Melissa, I have one simple question to resolve all of this. Who used the word pressure? Did the FBI, when they talked to CNN, who reported that story, use the word we were pressured, or did CNN on its own insert it into the story, its take on events? That's crucial, because if the FBI didn't say they felt pressured, then I think this is an entirely legitimate pushback by the White House that described what they were told. They're asking the FBI common sense. Well, if you're telling us the story's wrong, get it out there. Tell people it's wrong. What White House wouldn't do that? But if CNN inserted the word pressure on its own, CNN's got a lot of egg on its face, if you can believe the White House. And I think this story makes me want to believe the White House. I do.
Yeah, I mean, or if the FBI said, hey, you know, this thing isn't real, well, call me later, I'll tell you what to do about it. He does, and then they say nothing. I mean, it almost sounds like a trap of some sort. It's very strange. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more about it. And let's move on for 1 second, if you'll indulge me, to this whole idea of fake news, because this seems like a good way to get into it. Donald Trump talked about it, President Trump, pardon me, talked about it again today. Let's listen.
I want you all to know that we are fighting the fake news. It's fake, phony, fake. I'm not against the media. I'm not against the press. I don't mind bad stories. I am only against the fake news media or press.
What do you think about that?
I'm for it. But media bias is an ongoing serious issue, and Donald Trump has every right in the world, President Trump, to push back against reports he thinks are wrong. This White House does it with an aggressiveness, with a directness, with a bluntness that I've never seen before. And it's to their credit. You know, the press, if you believe the Gallup poll that came out in September, trust in the press is at a historical low. The American people, left, right, and center, don't think the press tells the news fairly and accurately. The press has brought so much of this onto itself, so I don't blame President Trump for pushing back.